The moment I realized my husband was lying to me, I was standing in my own kitchen, holding a phone that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My hands were shaking. My throat was dry. And on the other end of that call was my father, a man who had worked 40 years of his life just to see me smile, and there I was, about to break his heart because the man I married told me to. Let me take you back 12 days, back to when I still believed in love, back to when I thought a marriage was a safe place. My name is Clara, and this is the story of how my husband tried to use my own family as an ATM, and how, in just 11 days, my family turned the tables in a way that left him with nothing but regret. It started on a Tuesday. Rain was hitting the window like tiny stones. My husband, Derek, came home earlier than usual. That was the first red flag. Derek was never early. He was always busy, always closing deals, always too tired to talk. But that night, he walked into the kitchen with a face I had never seen before. It wasn't angry. It wasn't sad. It was calculated. He poured himself a glass of water, looked at me, and said, "Clara, we need to talk. If you are watching this, you already know that those 4 words are never good." We sat down at the table, the same table where we ate our first meal as a married couple, and then he dropped a bomb. He said we were going bankrupt. Not in a month, not next week, but right now. He told me that his business partner had run away with most of their money, that the bank was freezing their accounts, that we had maybe 2 weeks before we lost the house. I felt the air leave my lungs. I asked him, "What do we do?" And that is when he gave me the instruction that would change my life forever. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Call your parents. Tell them we need $50,000 by Friday. Tell them it's an emergency. And Clara, tell them it's your fault. Tell them you made a mistake with your medical bills so they don't ask me any questions." I sat there frozen. He wanted me to lie, not just a small lie, a big, ugly lie that would make my parents, 2 retired, kind-hearted people, think their daughter was dying or in trouble. He wanted me to take the blame so he could keep his hands clean. I said no. Of course, I said no. But Derek didn't get angry. He got quiet. And then he said something that still makes my blood run cold. He said, "If you don't do this, Clara, you will watch everything we built burn to the ground, and it will be your fault for not helping." That was the first night I cried myself to sleep next to a man who felt like a stranger. The next morning, I woke up hoping it was a nightmare, but Derek was already dressed, already holding my phone out to me like a judge handing down a sentence. He had dialed my mother's number. All I had to do was press call. I tried to argue one more time. I told him we could sell the car, we could get a loan from a bank, we could do anything else. But he shook his head. He said there was no time. He said the bank would laugh at us. And then he grabbed my shoulders and said, "Clara, your parents have money sitting in savings doing nothing. They are your parents. They will help you. Just say the words." So I did. I pressed call. My mother picked up on the second ring with that warm, loving voice that had welcomed me home every day of my childhood. She said, "Sweetheart, is everything okay?" And I lied. I told her I had made a terrible mistake with some medical bills from 2 years ago. I told her the hospital was threatening to sue me. I told her I needed $50,000 by Friday or I would lose everything. There was a long silence. I heard her put the phone down. I heard her call my father. A few minutes later, my father's voice came on. And this is the part that still haunts me. My father didn't yell. He didn't question me. He just said, "Clara, you are my daughter. If you are in trouble, I am here always." He asked if Derek knew. I said yes. He asked if Derek was helping. I said yes again. Every word was a knife in my own chest. But Derek was standing right there, nodding at me, mouthing the words, "Good job." My father said he would transfer the money by Thursday. He didn't even hesitate. $50,000, their retirement savings, their safety net, gone in a 5-minute phone call because I was too scared to tell the truth. After I hung up, Derek smiled. He actually smiled. He kissed my forehead and said, "See, that wasn't so hard. You saved us, Clara." Then he went to take a shower, and I sat on the couch staring at the wall, feeling like I had just sold a piece of my soul. That night, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face, the trust in his voice, the way he said always. I told myself that this was temporary, that once Derek fixed his business, we would pay them back. I told myself it was just a loan, but deep down some small voice kept whispering, "If he loved you, He would have asked them himself. Thursday came faster than I wanted. The money arrived in our joint account at exactly 10:00 a.m., $50,000. I watched the number appear on my phone screen and I felt sick. Derek was ecstatic. He kept saying, "We're safe, we're safe." But something felt wrong. That afternoon, Derek told me he needed to go to the bank to handle some paperwork. He kissed me goodbye and said he would be back in 2 hours. He was gone for 6. When he came back, he wasn't stressed. He wasn't worried. He looked refreshed, like a man who had just had a very good day. I asked him how the bank meeting went. He said, "Better than expected." But when I asked to see the paperwork, he suddenly got very busy. He said he left it in the car. Then he said he would show me tomorrow. Then he changed the subject to dinner. That was the second red flag, but I was still too afraid to pull the thread. I wanted to believe him. I wanted my marriage to be real. So I let it go. For one more day. The next morning, Derek forgot his jacket. He left it on the back of the kitchen chair. I picked it up to hang it in the closet, and something fell out of the pocket. A receipt. Not from a bank, not from a lawyer, from a jewelry store. A very expensive jewelry store. The kind of place where you don't buy a watch. You buy a statement. The receipt was dated the same day my parents sent the money. The total, $47,000. He had spent almost all of it on something shiny, something for himself. I felt the floor drop out from under me. I didn't confront him immediately. I waited. I watched. And that is when I started noticing the other things. The new shoes, the new cologne, the way he kept his phone face down on the table, the way he stepped into the other room every time it rang. My husband wasn't going bankrupt. My husband was stealing from my parents, and he was using me as the thief. I spent that whole night sitting in the dark, holding that receipt, asking myself one question. What kind of man does this to his wife? But the better question, the question I was too afraid to ask was, what kind of wife lets him? I decided to confront him on Saturday morning. I wanted my father there. I wanted my mother there. But Derek had isolated me so well that I felt completely alone. I didn't even have a car in my name. I didn't have a credit card. He didn't monitor. I had nothing except the truth, and truth, as I was about to learn, means nothing if you don't have the power to prove it. I waited until he finished his coffee. I put the receipt on the table. I said, "Explain this." He looked at the receipt. Then he looked at me. And for 5 seconds, I saw something terrifying behind his eyes. He wasn't embarrassed. He wasn't sorry. He was annoyed, like a parent who just caught a child sneaking a cookie. He said, "You went through my pockets?" I said, "You spent my parents' retirement on a watch." He laughed. He actually laughed. Then he leaned across the table and said, "Clara, your parents gave that money to you. For your mistake. What I do with our money is none of their business. And frankly, it's none of yours either. I'm the man of this house. I decide where the money goes." I told him I was calling my parents to tell them the truth. And that is when the mask came all the way off. He stood up so fast his chair fell backwards. He grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to leave a mark. Hard enough to hurt. Hard enough to scare me. He said, "If you tell them, I will make sure everyone knows you lied. Your parents will hate you. Your friends will leave you. And I will take everything. The house, the dog, every single thing you love. You will have nothing. Do you understand me?" I pulled my hand away. My wrist was red. My eyes were wet. But I didn't cry in front of him. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the cold tile floor. And for the first time, I admitted to myself, I am married to a monster. But here's the thing about monsters. They always make one mistake. They always underestimate the person they are trying to destroy. Derek thought I was weak. He thought I was just a wife who would cry and obey. He didn't know that my father didn't raise a victim. He raised a survivor. I just needed a plan. I didn't call my parents that night. I didn't call the police. I didn't pack a bag and run because running would have solved nothing. Derek would have told his version first. He would have painted me as the liar, the thief, the unstable wife, and my parents would have believed him. Not because they are bad people, but because I had already lied to them once, and once you lose trust, you can't just get it back with a phone call. So I did something else. I started watching, and I started waiting. That Sunday, I told Derek I was sorry. I told him I overreacted. I told him I understood that he was just stressed about the business. I played the role of the scared, confused wife, and he bought it. He bought it completely. Because that is what narcissists do. They believe their own version of reality. They cannot imagine that someone they broke could ever fight back. Over the next 11 days, I became a ghost in my own house. I listened to every phone call. I checked every pocket. I went through his laptop when he was in the shower, and piece by piece I started to find the truth. Derek wasn't bankrupt. His business partner hadn't run away. In fact, Derek didn't even have a business partner anymore. He had sold his share of the company 6 months ago for over $200,000, and he had hidden every single penny. He had another bank account, one I didn't know about. And in that account at that very moment, there was over $180,000. My parents' $50,000 was just extra fun money. A bonus for being clever. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the messages. I found conversations with a woman named Vanessa, messages about trips, messages about dinners, messages about how he couldn't wait to leave the situation at home. He was planning to leave me, and he was using my parents' money to fund his new life. I sat in front of that laptop screen for a long time. I read every message twice, and then I did something I never thought I would do. I took screenshots. I sent them to a new email address Derek didn't know about, and then I deleted the history. Revenge, I realized, is not about anger. Revenge is about patience. It's about waiting until the other person feels so safe, so powerful, so untouchable, that they forget to look behind them. On day 8, I finally called my father, but not from my phone. Derek checked my phone logs every night. I used a payphone at a gas station 3 miles from our house. It was cold. It was raining, and I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the receiver. When my father answered, I didn't say hello. I said, "Dad, I need you to listen. And I need you not to speak until I am finished." And then I told him everything. The lie, the money, the receipt, the secret bank account, the woman named Vanessa. I told him that his son-in-law was a thief and a liar. And I told him that I had been too scared to call sooner because I was afraid of losing him. There was a long silence. So long I thought the line had gone dead. Then my father said something I will remember until my last breath. He said, "Clara, you are my daughter. I am angry, but not at you. I am angry at myself for raising a girl who thinks she has to face a monster alone." He said he would call my mother. He said he would call my uncles. He said he would call every single person in our family who had ever loved me. And he said, "You're not going to fight Derek alone. You're going to watch him fall, and we are going to be standing right behind you when he hits the ground." That was the first time I cried without shame, not because I was sad, but because I realized I had forgotten what love felt like. Derek had made me believe that I was alone, that my family would hate me, that I had no one. But he was wrong. He was so wrong. Over the next 3 days, my family built a plan. My father, a retired accountant, knew exactly how to trace hidden money. My uncle, a lawyer, knew exactly how to freeze joint accounts, and my cousin, who worked in banking, knew exactly how to flag suspicious transactions. They didn't just want the money back. They wanted Derek to understand that you do not steal from a family that fights together. Day 10. Derek was getting ready for another business trip. He had packed a bag. He had put on his new cologne. He was texting someone every 30 seconds. I knew he was going to see Vanessa, but I didn't stop him. I didn't ask questions. I just smiled and said, "Drive safe, honey." He looked at me with something between pity and disgust. He said, "See, Clara, when you're nice, things are so much easier." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw his suitcase out the window, but I just nodded. Because the trap was already set, and the only way a trap works is if the animal doesn't know it's there. My father had transferred a small amount of money back into Derek's secret account. $100. Not much, but enough to trigger a notification. Enough to make Derek think everything was normal. Meanwhile, my uncle had filed the paperwork to freeze both of Derek's accounts, and my cousin had flagged the original $50,000 transfer as disputed funds. By the time Derek left for his trip, he had no idea that his financial world was about to collapse. He thought he was walking into a weekend with his secret girlfriend. He was actually walking into a brick wall. That night, I packed my own bag, not to run, but to move. My mother had cleaned out the guest room in their house. She had bought new sheets. She had put fresh flowers on the nightstand. She sent me a picture with a message that said, "Your real home is waiting for you." I looked at that picture for a long time. And for the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten existed. Hope. Day 11, the day everything changed. Derek came back from his trip on Sunday afternoon. He was in a good mood. Too good. He walked in the door, threw his bag on the floor, and said, Clara, let's order takeout. I feel like celebrating. I was sitting on the couch, fully dressed. My bag was already in the trunk of my father's car, which was parked down the street. I had been waiting for this moment for 11 days. I said, "Celebrating what, Derek?" He said, "Everything is working out. The business is recovering. Money is coming in. Life is good." And that was my cue. I stood up. I looked him right in the eyes, and I said, "Actually, Derek, nothing is working out. The bank froze your secret account this morning, the one with $180,000, the one you didn't tell me about." His smile disappeared. His face went pale. He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I'm talking about the money you stole from my parents. I'm talking about the woman named Vanessa. I'm talking about every single lie you have told me for the past 2 years." He took a step toward me. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. He said, "You don't know what you're doing. You're going to ruin everything." And that is when the front door opened. My father walked in first, then my mother, then my uncle, then 2 of my cousins. They didn't say a word. They just stood there, a wall of people who loved me. People Derek had told me would hate me. Derek looked at them. Then he looked at me, and for the first time since I met him, I saw real fear in his eyes. My father spoke first. He said, "Derek, you have 30 minutes to pack your things and leave this house. The police are outside. They are not here to arrest you yet, but if you so much as raise your voice at my daughter again, they will." Derek tried to argue. He tried to lie. He said I was crazy. He said I was making things up. But my uncle pulled out a folder, a thick folder. Inside were the screenshots, the bank statements, the messages to Vanessa, every single piece of evidence we had collected. Derek looked at that folder, and something broke inside him. Not his pride, his confidence. He realized, in that moment, that he had lost. Not because I was stronger, but because I had something he would never have. A family that shows up. Derek didn't pack in 30 minutes. He packed in 12. He grabbed clothes, shoes, and a few personal items. He didn't take the watch he bought with my parents' money. He left it on the dresser. I don't know if that was guilt or carelessness. And honestly, I didn't care. He walked out the front door with his head down. My cousin stood on the porch watching him. My father held my hand, and Derek didn't say a word to me, not goodbye, not I'm sorry. Not even an angry whisper. He just walked to his car, got in, and drove away. I expected to feel relief, or happiness, or even sadness. But what I actually felt was nothing. Just a quiet, empty calm, like after a storm when the world goes still and you realize the trees are still standing. My mother hugged me for a long time. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't ask why I stayed so long. She just held me. And then she whispered, "You're home now." That night I slept in my old bedroom, the one with the pink walls from when I was 16. The one with the posters and the old books and the window that looks out at the garden where I used to play. I slept better than I had slept in 3 years. But the story wasn't over, because Derek didn't just leave. He tried to fight back. A week later, Derek tried to sue me. He said I had stolen his property. He said I had hacked his computer. He said I had ruined his reputation for no reason. He hired a lawyer, a very expensive lawyer, and for a few days I was scared again. But my family didn't flinch. My uncle brought out the evidence, every screenshot, every bank record, every message to Vanessa. And here's the thing about liars. They always forget one detail. Derek had forgotten that the $50,000 from my parents was marked as a medical emergency loan, and he had spent it on a watch in a hotel room for another woman. The judge didn't even let the case go to trial. She looked at Derek and said, "You took money from your wife's elderly parents under false pretenses. You then used that money to fund an affair. And now you are suing the victim? Is that correct?" Derek's lawyer resigned on the spot. Derek tried to speak, but the judge raised her hand. She ordered him to repay every single penny, not just the $50,000, but also my parents' legal fees and the money he had hidden in his secret account. The court froze it permanently. Half of it went to me. The other half went to a charity for domestic abuse survivors. Derek didn't just lose the money, he lost his reputation. His business partners saw the court records. His friends stopped returning his calls. And Vanessa, she disappeared the moment she found out he was broke. In the end, Derek had nothing. No wife, no money, no girlfriend, no friends. Just a rented apartment and a folder full of court documents he couldn't afford to look at. And me? I went back to my parents' house. I started therapy. I got a job at a small bookstore, the kind of place I had dreamed of working at when I was a girl, and every morning I'd drink coffee on the porch and watch the sun rise over the garden. If you're watching this and you are in a relationship that makes you feel small, please hear me. You are not weak. You are not stupid. You are not alone. Derek convinced me that I had no one. He convinced me that if I told the truth, my family would hate me. He convinced me that his lies were my fault. That is what manipulators do. They build a cage around you using your own love as the bars. But here's the truth I learned in those 11 days. The people who truly love you will not abandon you because you made a mistake. They will not hate you because you were deceived. They will stand behind you. They will fight for you. And they will help you bury the monster who tried to destroy you. I didn't get revenge on Derek. I just let him face the consequences of his own choices, and that is the difference. Revenge comes from anger. Justice comes from truth. In truth, no matter how painful, will always set you free. So if you're holding on to a secret right now, if you are carrying a lie that someone forced you to tell, put down the phone, walk out the door, call the person you trust the most, and tell them everything. You might lose a liar, but you will never lose the people who truly belong to you. And remember this, you are not the story they tell about you. You are the one holding the pen now.